Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Munmin Bhattacharya, coming up in the next hour. India conducts anti-terror Operation Sindoor. Defence forces strike 9 terror hubs of Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed deep inside Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. PM Modi briefs President Murmu on Operation Sindoor against Pakistan. PM also briefs the Union Cabinet, praises Indian Armed Forces for the success of the operation. All Cabinet members express full faith in Narendra Modi's leadership. Home Minister Amit Shah briefs state chief ministers sharing borders with Pakistan and Nepal on Operation Sindoor. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri says India exercised its right to respond, preempt and deter more cross-border attacks planned by Pakistan-based terrorists. 2 women officers briefed the media along with the Foreign Secretary elaborate on the reasons for choosing 9 terror training ground targets, say munitions picked to ensure no collateral damage. And Government of India cautions against fake videos shared by pro-Pakistan handles on Operation Sindoor, flags severe fake posts, urges all to rely on official sources for authentic information. The Indian Armed Forces launched Operation Sindoor past midnight, hitting terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, from where terrorist attacks against India have been planned and directed. In a press release, the Armed Forces said that altogether 9 sites have been targeted. The Ministry of Defence in a statement said that the actions have been focused, measured and non-escalatory in nature. The ministry informed that no Pakistani military facilities have been targeted. It added India has demonstrated considerable restraint in selection of targets and method of execution. Further, the ministry said that these steps come in the wake of the barbaric Pahalgam terrorist attack in which 25 Indians and 1 Nepali citizen were murdered. We are living up to the commitment that those responsible for this attack will be held accountable, is what the Foreign Secretary of India, Vikram Misri, said. Prime Minister Narendra Modi met President Draupadi Murmu at Rashtrapati Bhavan this afternoon. The meeting came hours after India carried out Operation Sindoor at terror sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. In a social media post, President Murmu said that during the meeting, the Prime Minister briefed her about Operation Sindoor. Earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a meeting of the Union Cabinet today. According to the sources, Prime Minister Modi gave details of the strikes to his cabinet colleagues. He said that the Indian Army has carried out the operation as per the preparations without any mistake. All the ministers of the Union Cabinet expressed their faith in the leadership of PM Modi and said that the whole country is with him. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also praised the armed forces for their successful operation. Meanwhile, the government has convened an all-party meeting on Wednesday at 11 a.m. in the wake of Operation Sindoor. During the meeting, the leaders of different political parties will be briefed by the government on the operation. So the all-party meeting will be taking place on Thursday. The Government of India will be briefing all political parties in the all-party meeting on Operation Sindoor. Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Wednesday called an urgent meeting of Chief Ministers, Chief Secretaries and DGPs of states having borders with Pakistan and Nepal. The meeting has been called in wake of the strikes carried out by the Indian Armed Forces on terror targets in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir as a retaliatory action against the Pahalgam terror attack. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on Wednesday praised the armed forces for carrying out precision strikes on terror camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, saying the action targeted those who killed innocent people. Speaking at the inauguration of 50 infrastructure projects by the Border Roads Organisation across 6 states and 2 union territories, Rajnath Singh extended gratitude to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for fully backing the armed forces who carried out Operation Sindoor.
हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी के मार्गदर्शन में हमारे भारत की सेना ने हम सभी भारतवासियों का मस्तक ऊंचा किया। कल रात हमारी भारतीय सेनाओं ने अपने अद्भुत शौर्य और पराक्रम का परिचय देते हुए एक नया इतिहास रच दिया है। साथियों, भारत की सेना ने सटीकता, सतर्कता और संवेदनशीलता के साथ कार्रवाई की है। हमने जो लक्ष्य तय किए थे उन्हें ठीक समय तय योजना के अनुसार सटीकता से उन्होंने ध्वस्त किया है और किसी भी नागरिक ठिकाने, सिविलियन पॉपुलेशन को जरा भी प्रभावित न होने देने की संवेदनशीलता भी हमारी सेना ने दिखाई है।
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar spoke to Qatari Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani. The Qatari leader was briefed about the Indian strike targeting terrorist infrastructure and gave details on the measured response of India aimed to deter cross-border terrorism. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also spoke with the Foreign Minister of Spain, Jose Manuel Alvarez. The External Affairs Minister briefed the Spanish counterpart about the precision strikes and reiterated India's firm and measured response to cross-border terrorism. Minister Jaishankar also called on his Japanese counterpart. Foreign Minister of Japan Takeshi Iwaya appreciated the strong condemnation of the April 22 terrorist attack. Leaders discussed India's action against the cross-border terrorist infrastructure this morning. So Dr. Jaishankar said, appreciate the strong condemnation of the April 22 terrorist attack coming from Japan. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also had a joint teleconference with Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of France, Jean-Noel Barrot, and Federal Minister for Foreign Affairs of Germany, Johann Wadephul. And leaders appreciated their solidarity and support in the wake of the Pahalgam terrorist attack and discussed ensuring zero tolerance for terrorism. So this is the exposed by Dr. Jaishankar, appreciating the solidarity and support in the wake of the Pahalgam terrorist attack and discussed ensuring zero tolerance for terrorism. As India launched strikes against Pakistan in response to a deadly attack on tourists in Kashmir last month, Indian leaders hailed the strong response from the armed forces. Global leaders have called for dialogue to de-escalate the situation and ensure regional stability. Here's a report.
Reactions from across the world and India started pouring in on the midnight launch of the Operation Sindoor on the terrorist infrastructure in both Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir on Wednesday. Israel has extended its support to New Delhi, defending its right to self-defense. Global leaders, including US President Donald Trump and United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, have expressed concern and urged restraint. Japan has also condemned the initial terrorist attack and called for dialogue to de-escalate the situation and ensure regional stability. Panama, a non-permanent UNSC member, has also issued a statement saying it stands in solidarity with India in this tragic loss and in the ongoing fight against terrorism. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke to India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval shortly after India carried out missile strike on terror targets in Pakistan. Reacting to Operation Sindoor, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said, the world must show zero tolerance for terrorism. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and India's Home Minister Amit Shah also echoed similar sentiments. India's main opposition leader Rahul Gandhi has hailed Operation Sindoor. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge and Indian politician Asauddin Owaisi lauded India's strike against POK under Operation Sindoor. Senior opposition leader and General Secretary of All India Congress Committee Jairam Ramesh reaffirmed the Congress Party's unwavering support for India's response to cross-border terrorism. Relatives of victims and survivors of Pahalgam attack continue to applaud India's strike on Pakistan. Many describe the operation as absolutely necessary to send a clear message against terrorism.
I think government has done a detailed study before coming into this conclusion of attacking these terror outfits, and we completely support the government decision.
बहुत धन्यवाद करती हूँ, उनसे बहुत थैंक यू कहती हूँ कि उन्होंने मेरे पति की मौत का बदला लिया है।
जो उन्होंने मोदी साहब ने बदला लिया है, सेना के जवानों को यही मैसेज देना चाहती हूँ कि आगे बढ़ते रहो।
In cities and towns nationwide, locals expressed pride in the armed forces and lauded the government's action against terror.
We should teach them a very great lesson. This time we should not leave them. They should learn the lesson for their lifetime.
The retaliation was needed, I think. I think justice has been served.
I think it's much needed and it's very appropriate. Pakistan is a country that practices cross-border terrorism as an instrument of its state policy.
Slogans of Bharat Mata Ki Jai and Vande Mataram were raised as people across India celebrated Operation Sindoor and hailed the armed forces. Bureau Report, DD India.
And joining us now for perspective are Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, former Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, as well as Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar. Such a pleasure to have the two of you. Also, Jessica Taneja, my colleague who covers foreign affairs very closely, is joining us from the newsroom. Jessica, I'll come to you first. We've seen that since the Pahalgam terror attack, the Government of India, particularly the MEA, has been working the phone lines, and that has continued until and even after Operation Sindoor. There have been meetings at the physical level as well. Phone lines continue to ring. Could you put it in perspective for us how India responded diplomatically since the Pahalgam terror attack of April 22? How has it been able to mobilize public opinion internationally in its favor?
Well, if you look at firstly from the United Nations Security Council meeting that was held closed doors and of course the Pakistani agenda there of taking up the issue of Kashmir was foiled. It was not a statement that the Pakistanis were expecting. Nothing according to the lines that their diplomatic efforts were put forth. But when it comes to India, there were constant communications, as you also pointed out in your report earlier, from today morning till, it continues even now. And we're given to understand, and as I see my phone screen right now with updates, the Ministry of External Affairs has put out a statement saying that the Iranian foreign minister would arrive in a short while. Remember, he was in Pakistan yesterday, but so far the Indian External Affairs Minister has spoken to his counterparts from Spain, EU, France. And what we're giving to understand at this point further is the fact that these engagements will continue and India would continue to put forth its point wherein it does tell the world leaders and of course its foreign counterparts that it is Pakistan who's responsible for allowing terror to emanate from its soil and to allow to continue its activities and its operations. And from the Operation Sindoor that the Indian Armed Forces have conducted successfully, India is making sure that the details of that are put forth. Now, as you and I speak right now, Munmun, we're also given to understand that the United Nations Security Council envoys of various countries have been briefed by the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri here in New Delhi in the MEA headquarters. They've been told about the current escalation from the Pakistani side and also to the fact that the Pakistani side was shielding the Resistance Front, which is an offshoot of the LET that was responsible for the terrorist attack that took place in Pahalgam on April 22nd. Not just this, you saw the Prime Minister's engagements as well, speaking to his counterparts and getting assurances from key allies as to how this entire situation unfolds, especially when it comes to India's national security. It has a measured response. It did not target any of the economic and military facilities, and its main purpose and its aim was to shake up the entire training modules, the training facilities, to destroy them so that the 3 decades of ensuing violence in India could get a befitting reply, and this somehow would not have gone unanswered. And these are mainly the points that have been presented to diplomats, not just here in New Delhi, but also various missions of India overseas. This is part of coercive diplomacy that India follows, and it is not just today. It has happened. It was followed back in 2019 and back in 2016 as well, and successively previously when Pakistan-based terror groups have attacked India time and time again. And it certainly continues to follow, but now with more heft, in a sense, to explain that there is ample proof to suggest that this happened under Pakistan's watch, and it will continue to bear the brunt of what it has allowed to emanate from its soil.
Clearly show that there is the entire Pakistan fingerprint on the Pahalgam terror attack, like you said. General, coming to you, the Indian Armed Forces have done a remarkable job with Operation Sindoor. If you could give us an insight into what kind of preparedness really goes into carrying out such an attack with such precision and no collateral damage.
Thanks a lot for calling me over for this program. And at the outset, I'd like to extend my compliments and best wishes to all those who have participated in this event. Well, when you go into the planning of such an event, you have to look at all possibilities. You have to look at the kind of intelligence you need, because you need to identify the targets. In this case, these targets are pretty well known. These targets, which are across the IB and the LOC, were known ever since I was in the army and operating in this area 25 years back. So it's a matter of knowing, well, these targets are there, and how do you hit them? And how do you hit them without getting hurt yourself? And how do you achieve surprise so that, they are not warned? It's not a matter of the target. The target won't go anywhere, but you shouldn't be intercepted in your way in or way out. I think a whole lot of coordination was needed. A whole lot of jointness was needed, jointness in planning between Army and the Air Force, and also the Navy. I won't leave the Navy out also. And not only in this entire incident, if you see, or the entire operation, if you see, a whole lot of coordination was done at national level. And I suspect a lot of inputs came from our satellites, and a lot of inputs came from our cyber people also. Now, having said that, India has achieved a tremendous operational surprise in this event. Let me explain it to you. 2 days back, it was put out that there's going to be a mock drill on 7th and 8th. And then 1 day back, it was put out, a NOTAM was put out that there's going to be an exercise by the Southwest Air Command and area of Rajasthan, southern area, Jaisalmer, Barmer, and that area. And everyone's focus was on that, and no one expected that the strikes will go in the night before. I think even Pakistan was completely, blindsided with this whole thing, and we went in. And when we went in, I'm very sure that our planners knew exactly how the air defenses of Pakistan were laid out and how they were operating. Because we blindsided them, and they could do actually nothing. Right? Despite the fact that they have, Chinese surveillance equipment and Chinese interception equipment, their air defense proved ineffective because all 9 targets have been hit 25 times. And there is video evidence to prove that they have been hit conclusively. And not only video evidence, the Prime Minister has also admitted to the fact that this has happened. So I think on all counts, everything was done neatly, and the exit was also done very well. Now we are in the stage of countering the Pak narratives, and assisted by China, all the fake narratives which are going around that 6 Rafales have been hit and 2 Mirages have been hit and XYZ. Despite the fact that DG ISPR itself has put out first thing in the morning that, look, all these attacks took place from Indian side of the border. If on Indian side of the border, all attacks took place, how could they have been downed on the Indian side on a dogfight or something like that, or by the Chinese air defense? So they're actually caught in their own trap, but they're going ahead with the way it is with Chinese help. So overall, if you see, and what's more, all our targets have been hit cleanly in a precise manner.
Right.
This also belies the fact that a lot of people have said, look, after seeing the Ukraine-Russia war and the Israel and Gaza war, there were a lot of questions. Is Indian Air Force modern enough? Are Indian armed forces fit enough for a modern, scrap? I think we've proved it. We've proven the fact that it doesn't matter what it is. We are modern enough. And more importantly, we have the experience to do all these things.
So we've put all those doubts to rest.
Right? This is the extension of the surgical strikes which we carried out post-Uri and the experience of the, Balakot strike which we carried out post-Pulwama. So we have the institutional experience of, having done whatever we did. And I see those fingerprints coming in here to ensure that we don't do the same mistakes which we did then, right? And now I think all those are covered up and, we'll now have to wait, knowing Pakistan, there is going to be a repost, there is going to be a counterattack, we'll have to wait it out. And the fact that a counterattack is going to come has been indicated by their Prime Minister already.
Okay. We'll take that forward, the point that you had earlier made of how Pakistan is peddling fake narrative. Ambassador, taking up that point with you, Pakistani accounts we know are peddling old and doctored videos to claim that Indian fighter jets were shot down after Operation Sindoor. How does such desperation that makes the state of Pakistan and the agents peddle fake news reflect on them?
Well, a state that has sponsored terrorism against India for so many decades has actually let down its own guard. And so the kind of development that India or our neighbors have had has not been experienced in Pakistan. Its polity has gone to decay and it is run by a military junta in a sense. And so therefore it is obviously very, very in desperate need of having validation for itself. And I think that's what was actually bothering it. And in order to do that, it also exhibited how concerned it was about its own capabilities. The constant refrain to the nuclear capabilities that Pakistan had, the fact that, the constant refrain that India could not actually launch an attack, but it was trying to do so, actually underlies the fact that it was very, very scared. And I think the reaction to that has also come about because the Chinese equipment that the Pakistan Armed Forces and Air Force in particular have proved to be as ineffective as they were expected to be and were unable to counter the Indian march. I think this is really a question of narratives. And I think the question of how we play it out in terms of the fight against terrorism, the need to have zero tolerance is perhaps what is most necessary. And I think Pakistan is on a very weak wicket on that. I recall the previous speaker had mentioned about the intervention that Pakistan had sought to make at the United Nations Security Council, where it is a non-permanent member at this stage and where it should have had a natural advantage. But given Pakistan's track record in terms of supporting and abetting terrorism, it obviously did not make the kind of headway that Pakistan had expected to do. But I think this battle of narratives will continue for some time. If you look at the kind of reactions that have come from the global community, from many of the world leaders, we find that there are expressions of condemnation of what happened at Pahalgam. We also notice that there are certain concerns that are being expressed that this particular situation should not escalate. And I think with the exception of China that has called the event regrettable, which is most unfortunate because, that's not expected from a responsible country and a neighbor of India, there has been no other such instance while most people have called for caution and for not escalating the situation forward. I will once again join the general in saying that the armed forces have done a very commendable job. And they remain alert to whatever else the Pakistanis might be wishing to throw at us. But this battle of narratives will be a long one. I see the kind of offensive that we have launched in capitals across the world, with the External Affairs Minister speaking to his counterparts, with the Foreign Secretary and our ambassadors going out in trying to tell the world about how this thing actually happened and how the world needs to unite, because this is not a bilateral contest, the fight against terrorism. It has to be a global war.
Absolutely, and which is why the entire world needs to continue to stand with India in this fight against terrorism, because India is not the only victim. The countries around the world are a victim of Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. General, what do you think about the use of the term Sindoor in Operation Sindoor? Does it communicate restorative justice to the survivors and family members of those killed by terrorists in the Pahalgam terror attack? Is there striking symbolism that's hard to miss in the coinage?
Yeah, you can't just miss it at all. हमारा सिंदूर उजाड़ दिया, हम आपको नहीं छोड़ेंगे. बड़ा simple. Now, I'm sorry, I'm switching it to Hindi because I think Hindi best encapsulates Sindoor and the significance of Sindoor, and we paid it back in that same coin.
Yes.
Now, let me take it a little step further. It might be a little crass, but I can't, stop myself from doing so. Look, all these years, these Jaish-e-Mohammed and LET chaps came and did what they wanted to do, and they created havoc. I've dealt with these fellows when I was in service, and, of course, that was on the streets and with bullets, right? So they're a menace, and they've created havoc and brought misery to people. Today, it is poetic justice and beyond that we've carried out this operation, and the leader of Jaish-e-Mohammed has lost 10 people. And, he's there mourning for them. And I do hope this is a lesson. But knowing Pakistan, this won't be a lesson at all. They'll come back at us. They'll justify their whole story again. And if you saw, in those visuals which have come out in that, burial ceremony, you saw a whole lot of Pakistani army officers and ISI officers and things like that, alongside Jaish-e-Mohammed leader Masood Azhar. And it just goes to prove that those people are hand in glove with everything they do. And it also proves that, look, this state is a terrorist state. It's no more a sponsor of terrorism. Terrorism is built into the state. And this is something which we have to build into the narrative which the ambassador was speaking of. And we have to take it forward. And this narrative of the Sindoor also has to be taken forward, because this is a very powerful emotional appeal, which we must put it out. This is, in terms of symbolism and appeal and everything, it is something like, the bodies of naked Israeli ladies who were paraded by those, Gaza guys. Something like that is this. The very symbolism of Sindoor, I think, is very high. Though you might say there's no comparison, but I think so, it is there. And this will live a long time. It also brings in people on our side of the fence. And it cuts across political lines to make India united. It is just not conveying an issue. There is an internal factor also. So I think, all in all, Operation Sindoor, I thought, was brilliant. When I first came, I learnt about it in the early hours of the day, right? And I hope we take it to its logical conclusion.
Yes. So what would that logical conclusion be? We'll take that point forward, but it's important that you make that point, that there is a strong symbolism to the coinage of the term Operation Sindoor. Ambassador, will Operation Sindoor and India putting the Indus Waters Treaty on hold have some deterrent effect on Pakistan?
Oh, yes, certainly. I think, a lot of it is symbolism and a lot of it is hard hitting. And the symbolism of the Indus Water Treaty is extremely important, because this is something that we can actually convert into a tangible effect on the Pakistan economy. The Pakistan economy is already in crippled situation. But if there were to be a water crisis over there, and I think that's what they're fearing, if the crops were to fail, then the country that is already in deep debt would be in deep distress and public discontent. And the armed forces which have held sway in that particular polity and economy and society will feel the brunt of that pressure. And I think that's what they're very worried about. So this was a trump card, so to say, that happened. I think in many ways, the Indus Water Treaty was perhaps what one can say, not particularly an equal treaty. But I think at that point of time, after independence, there was a certain mood to be accommodating. But today, under the changed circumstances, where the geopolitical realities have changed, the environmental realities have changed, and Pakistan has been not a good neighbor, to say the least, but has been a sponsor of terrorism across the borders into our country, attacking our parliament, attacking our people, attacking our financial centers. We have every right to respond. So I think this and every other, I think there are other means that would then become available. For instance, the kind of cyber capabilities that we have, the kind of economic impact that we can actually have on their systems. And these would prove to be much more effective in terms of destabilizing the sponsors behind this particular heinous thing that happened at Pahalgam and has happened many times in the past across the country by the Pakistanis.
Yes, India has demolished 9 terrorist sites in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir as well as in Pakistan. Well, we request the two guests to stay with us as we tell the viewers what else is happening. Well, soon after the focus strikes on terrorists and terrorist infrastructure at 9 sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir as part of Operation Sindoor, India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval spoke with NSAs of several countries, including US NSA and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, UK NSA Jonathan Powell, Saudi Arabia's National Security Advisor Musaid Al-Aiban, UAE's NSA Sheikh Tahanoon, Secretary General of NSC of the UAE Ali Al-Shamsi, and the NSA of Japan Masataka Okano. Contact was also established with Russian NSA Sergei Shoigu, member of Political Bureau of CPC Central Committee and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China Wang Yi, and diplomatic advisor to French President Emmanuel Bon. NSA briefed his counterparts on actions taken and method of execution, which was measured, non-escalatory and restrained. He emphasized that India had no intent to escalate but was well prepared to retaliate resolutely should Pakistan decide to escalate. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri briefed ambassadors of permanent members of the United Nations Security Council about India's operation against terror camps in Pakistan and POJK. The Indian Armed Forces launched Operation Sindoor past midnight, hitting terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, from where terrorist attacks against India have been planned and directed. Briefing media on Operation Sindoor, Foreign Secretary of India Vikram Misri said that India has exercised its right to respond, preempt and deter more cross-border attacks following the Pahalgam terror attack. He noted that investigations into the Pahalgam terror attack have brought out the communication nodes of terrorists in and to Pakistan. Further, he said that it was deemed essential that perpetrators of the attack were brought to justice.
Investigations into the Pahalgam terror attack have brought out the communication nodes of terrorists in and to Pakistan. The claims made by the Resistance Front and their reposting by known social media handles of the Lashkar-e-Taiba speak for themselves. Identification of the attackers based on eyewitness accounts as well as other information available to law enforcement agencies has also progressed. Our intelligence has developed an accurate picture of the planners and backers of this team. The features of this attack also tie in with Pakistan's long track record of perpetrating cross-border terrorism in India, which is well documented and beyond question. Pakistan also has a well-deserved reputation as a haven for terrorists from around the world, with internationally proscribed terrorists enjoying impunity there. In addition, Pakistan has been known to willfully mislead the world and international forums, such as the Financial Action Task Force, on this issue. It was deemed essential that the perpetrators and planners of the 22nd April attack be brought to justice. Despite a fortnight having passed since the attacks, there has been no demonstrable step from Pakistan to take action against the terrorist infrastructure on its territory or on territory under its control. Instead, all it has indulged in are denials and allegations. Our intelligence monitoring of Pakistan-based terrorist modules indicated that further attacks against India were impending. There was thus a compulsion both to deter and to preempt.
Speaking on the attack in Pahalgam on April 22, he said that Pakistani and Pakistan-trained terrorists associated with Lashkar-e-Taiba launched a barbaric attack on tourists.
Earlier this morning, as you would be aware, India exercised its right to respond and preempt as well as deter more such cross-border attacks. These actions were measured, non-escalatory, proportionate, and responsible. They focused on dismantling the terrorist infrastructure and disabling terrorists likely to be sent across to India.
The Foreign Secretary noted that the attack was deliberate to undermine normalcy in Jammu and Kashmir, adding that the family members were deliberately traumatized and they were threatened to convey the message of barbarism.
Family members were deliberately traumatized through the manner of the killing, accompanied by the exhortation that they should take back the message. The attack was clearly driven by the objective of undermining the normalcy returning to Jammu and Kashmir. In particular, it was designed to impact the mainstay of the economy, tourism, with a record 23 million tourists visiting the valley last year. The calculation presumably was that harming growth and development in the Union Territory would help keep it backward and create fertile ground for continued cross-border terrorism from Pakistan.
Speaking on India's action on terrorist camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied J&K, Wing Commander Vyomika Singh said that the Operation Sindoor was launched to deliver justice to the victims of the Pahalgam terror attack and their families. The Wing Commander added that 9 terrorist camps were targeted and successfully destroyed.
9 terrorist camps were targeted and successfully destroyed. Over the last 3 decades, Pakistan has systematically built terror infrastructure. It is a complex web of recruitment and indoctrination centers, training areas for initial and refresher courses, and launch pads for handlers. These camps are located both in Pakistan as well as Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir areas. Some of the well-known training camps are located, as you can see on the screen. They are distributed from Savai Nala in the north, counting to approximately 21, ending at Bhavalpur to the south.
The Wing Commander asserted that Operation Sindoor was carried out with due diligence using niche technology weapons and careful selection of warheads.
Of these targets for Operation Sindoor was based on credible intelligence inputs and role of these facilities in perpetrating the terror activities. The locations were so selected to avoid damage to civilian infrastructures and loss of any civilian lives. This was done with due diligence. A niche technology weapons with careful selection of warheads was ensured so that there will be no collateral damage. The point of impact in each of the target was a specific building or a group of buildings. All the targets were neutralized with clinical efficiency, and the results reiterate the professionalism of the Indian Armed Forces in the planning and execution of their operations. No military establishments were targeted. India has demonstrated considerable restraint in its response. However, it must be said that the Indian Armed Forces are fully prepared to respond to Pakistani misadventures, if any, that will escalate the situation.
Just a word of caution now to all our viewers. Since vested interests are trying to spread fake news, it is important that we focus only on established or official channels of communication to understand what really happened in Operation Sindoor and how Pakistan responded in whichever little fashion it has at the India-Pakistan border. People should not believe in misinformation that is being spread out and only trust official channels. Soon after the news of the Operation Sindoor broke, fake videos shared by several pro-Pakistan handlers started circulating. Refuting the claims, Ministry of Defence has clarified that it is being falsely claimed about strikes on Indian security establishments. The video shared is old and not from India. The video is from sectarian clashes that took place in the year 2024 in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in Pakistan. Further, an old image showing a crashed aircraft is being recirculated by pro-Pakistan handles in various forms in the current context of Operation Sindoor. This image is from an earlier incident involving an Indian Air Force MiG-29 fighter jet that crashed in Barmer, Rajasthan in September 2024. And this image is from an earlier incident involving an Indian Air Force MiG-21 fighter jet that crashed in Moga district in Punjab in 2021. The government has thus urged countrymen to rely only on official Government of India sources for authentic information. Coming back to our guests for perspective, Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, former Secretary MEA, and Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar continue to be with us. So we have already spoken about the tactics that Pakistan is using of peddling fake news and spreading a fake narrative. But General, coming to you on if Pakistan were to escalate, then India would retaliate. So what do you think Pakistan will do now, and what should be India's response in terms of scale and lethality?
Look, Pakistan has already started making ground for it to retaliate. It has already started spreading fake news that the Indian action was a failure and they have to prove that they are a success now. That's one. Second, for the past few days, they've been peddling, news that there are terrorist camps in Rajasthan somewhere which train Baluch and Afghan and Pashtun terrorists in India. So they've actually created a fake target for themselves which they can hit. And they very well knew that we're going to hit their terrorist camps. So to retaliate against the terrorist camp, they need another terrorist camp here. So they've created a fake terrorist camp. So tomorrow, if they have to hit a terrorist camp, they might just come across the IB anywhere along the border, throw some bombs at some funny place, or even target a village or something and say this is a terrorist camp, like the way we've done, right? And just mirror it and call it a terrorist camp of Baluch people or whatever it is, and do this. And that's the most likely way that they're going to go about doing it. The other way is, like today, the DGISPR has stated that India has targeted a dam along the Neelam Jhelum, this is opposite the Tipwal sector. And they said, look, if you do this, we can also do this. And we all know that we have, held the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance. As a result, and the Prime Minister has said anyone who wants to divert the water or stop the water or anything, we'll do whatever is there within our means to, stop that, and we will attack them and all that. So that's the second set of targets. They might target an odd, water infrastructure or a sluice gate or a dam here and there or a canal. So this is a second set of targets they can, target. I don't see a third set of targets the way I look at it, but then Pakistan is so irrational it can do the third thing also. And the way Pakistan has been operating all through the years, whether it is against us in Balakot as part of Op Swift Retort, or against Iran 2 years back when Iran fired a couple of cruise missiles this side, and these people went back and attacked across with jets within 48 hours, not even 48 hours, 24 hours. So this will come in, and I think the next 48 to 72 hours are pretty well important. And in this phase, we should now, I'm sure the forces are on ground are already up to it. We should stop, discussing what's the implication, and all that for some time. And some of our people who are gloating over all this as a success, I think we should stay put and, step back and be ready for the riposte. It's gonna come. Let's not make a mistake about it. And last time when Swift retort came, for whatever reason, Wing Commander Abhinandan had to go across and he was caught there and it became an international incident of its own kind. I think we need to avoid that and handle it very sensibly and hit them when they come. Wait for them, ambush them and hit them. And I think that's the most important thing for the next 48 to 72 hours. And after that, we'll see how the thing goes, whether it escalates or not escalates and how Pakistan behaves, all that, I think is later. At this point of time, while we shape the environment and shape the global environment through diplomacy, like what the ambassador said, we've spoken to Russia, we've spoken to China, we've spoken to USA, you've spoken to Qatar and all that. You're shaping the environment, that's fine. But ultimately, it will depend on what you do on ground in the next 48 to 72 hours, maybe 96 hours, but it's going to come. So that's my take on this whole story. I think we have to get back to basics immediately, snap back to basics immediately and anticipate what Pakistan is about to do and it will do.
Absolutely. So India cannot let its guard down. We need to be prepared, of course, for retaliation if Pakistan were to escalate. And we've said that we will in as many words if it comes to that. Well, Ambassador, coming to you now, what are the other diplomatic options that India may still have on the table? For instance, could India further put pressure on the international community and the FATF to again put Pakistan back into the grey list there? And on maybe the IMF to not extend loans to Pakistan any longer?
Well, there are several diplomatic measures. I think many of them will focus on establishing that Pakistan is a terrorist state and not merely a sponsor of terrorism. The second part of measures will be to try and isolate Pakistan on the economic front so that it feels the brunt of the pressure on its flailing economy. And it then has to take certain corrective measures to quell the possibility of public discontent. I think a lot of the measures will also try to seek that Pakistan is actually condemned, because if you look at the kind of statements that have come from across, while countries have condemned the Pahalgam attack, the condemnation of Pakistan per se has been somewhat muted. And I think a lot of the diplomatic efforts are aimed in that direction. I think some of the things that we will be doing will be to make sure that if the question of the Indus Water Treaty were to come up at the World Bank, which has played the role of a mediator and an intermediary on this right from the outset, that it does not gain a strength and the abeyance that we have put into effect is withheld. The second is that we would definitely try to have a further intervention on the FATF. The committees in the United Nations Security Council, unfortunately, are hugely influenced by China, which has been supportive of Pakistan's complicity in this particular effort. And so there might be difficulties on the UN Security Council front, but on the FATF, we can try and we will certainly be putting in the efforts of placing Pakistan's track record once more. But do realize and remember that Pakistan was on the grey list and had sort of been in compliance, found to be in compliance with most of those, and therefore was taken off. The third set of issues that I think would be very important would be to try and garner support within the Islamic community. Because if you recall, some of the things that the Pakistan system had tried to bring out in the early days after the strikes was to say that mosques were attacked, that civilians were targeted, and to try and gain a certain kind of public sympathy in the Islamic world. Now, of course, the world has changed a lot. Countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates are no longer, in a position to support Pakistan because of the kind of actions that Pakistan has gone through. Even countries like Qatar would find it difficult today to do so. And I understand the External Affairs Minister spoke with his Qatari counterpart. There is, of course, some sort of angst about the role of Turkey in this particular context, because they have been a rather open supporter of Pakistan on many of these issues, more so.
But
with
if you would remember, a few days back, India did commend a statement that had come in from Turkey.
Those are some of the issues that we will be looking at.
Yes, Ambassador, I was saying that just a few days back, India had commended a statement that had come from Turkey, which was pretty explicit in its condemnation of the Pahalgam terror attack. But what you are saying is also in a way right, because over the years we've seen how Turkey has tried to, in a way, do a balancing act between India and Pakistan, and bent more on the Pakistan side on this. Well, but towards the end, one question that I would like to ask both the guests is that today, how does the international community see India after these counter responses of India in 2016 when we carried out the surgical strike, then in 2019 after we carried out the aerial strike on the Balakot terror camp, and now when we have targeted 9 terrorist camps of Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed in POK as well as in Pakistan. What is the image of India now in front of the international community? I'll come to you, General.
Look, the image of India, its armed forces have not changed. Everyone knows our capability, right? Why would people say Pakistan has the most professional armed forces which has never won a war? In fact, they say Pakistan has the most professional armed forces which has lost all its wars. So our image, there's no problem of, Indian armed forces image. We must also remember and, understand that the Indian armed forces are the only armed forces who have pushed China back. We pushed them back by about 9 to 10 kilometers twice over the past 4 years. First, after the operations at Eastern Ladakh and on Kailash Range, we pushed them back by 9 kilometers along the Pangong Tso. And now, after what we did at Kazan and after holding the LAC for 4 years and tiring the Chinese out, they've gone back by another 15 kilometers at Depsang. It didn't come about easily. And everyone understands. If at that time you had gone to many people, they said, look, it's only India which could have done this. Similarly, if you look at it internationally, heart of hearts, everyone knows that it's only India which could have done this. Many would be thanking India for having done this. Israel has already done so openly. So image-wise, I'm not worried. The issue which I think we need to pay attention and be very practical about is that, look, we need to up our information warfare capability better. We need to have our narratives better. And that's what the ambassador has also spoken of earlier. So I think that is something which we need to focus on.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. Just in one line, if you could tell us how the world community sees India. We're out of time, Ambassador.
Right. So, I think this is a very interesting time in terms of the shift in geopolitics. And what we do see is that the world recognizes that there is a certain rise of India, and the rise of China is perhaps a story of the past. And in this particular context, India will now stand out not only as a nation which is known for its values and principles, and the fact that it is trying to bring up the conditions, the living conditions of its people,
right,
but is prepared to stand up to terrorism and to take the extreme measures if required. And
so India has demonstrated that it stands up to terrorism every time it is hit like this. Well, We'll leave it at that. Thank you, General, and thank you, Ambassador, for joining us on this broadcast on DD India. Well, we'll move on now. A wave of relief and pride sweeps the nation as the news of Operation Sindoor unfolds. Many Indians express satisfaction and a sense of security, commending the precision and effectiveness of the action while hoping for lasting peace. There is a feeling that a strong message has been delivered.
प्राउड करते हैं हमारे देश के जो किया है वो अच्छा किया है. वी आर प्राउड. आज हो गया है उसके वजह से थोड़ा रिलैक्स भी अभी हो गए कि कुछ होएगा नहीं. वी आर नॉट सो फ्राइटन.
पहलगाम जैसी वारदातें आगे ना हो. ये जो मिलिटेंट जो ट्रेनिंग सेंटर बने हो इनको ख़त्म कर देना चाहिए. पाकिस्तान को भी एक अकल आए और पाकिस्तान पे भी पूरा दबाव बना के रखना चाहिए कि ऐसी हरकत ना करे कि निर्दोष लोगों की हत्या ना करवाए.
जो अभी सरकार किया बहुत अच्छा किया. पाकिस्तान को एक बार सबक देना बहुत जरूरी था.
पाकिस्तान द्वारा जो पहलगाम में हमारे निहत्थे यात्रियों पर हमला करके उनको शहीद किया गया था, उसके लिए हम काफ़ी दिनों से इस चीज़ का इंतज़ार कर रहे थे. जो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी द्वारा रात को जो फैसला लिया गया, हम उसका स्वागत करते हैं.
आज पूरे देश के अंदर खुशी है. रात से 2 बजे से लोग एक दूसरे को फोन करके बधाइयां दे रहे हैं कि पाकिस्तान के अंदर घुसकर हमारी एयरफोर्स ने जो है वो कई आतंकवादियों को मार गिराया है और उनके ठिकानों को ध्वस्त किया है.
So that is the mood of the nation across the length and breadth of the country after Operation Sindoor. That's it in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. This is Munun Bhattacharya from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.